Welcome, everybody. Now, Nora, would you like to start as president?
Sure. Yeah, so welcome everyone to our ICF Orange County chapters. Are we yeah, October? I'm like, what
October,
month
yes.
is this? October's chapter meeting. So welcome everyone. We're so happy that you were able to make it tonight. This is going to be a very unique and different and timely topic. Yeah, we just, honestly, I've told the board many times, I really wish we could have been face to face by now. I miss seeing all of you live and hugging you and really connecting with each of you. I can't wait till that happens again, but in the meantime, welcome, and let's make the best use of our time today. Oh.
Great. So I am just really excited about today. We wanted to do something that was relevant to what's been going on in the world. And, in the beginning when COVID hit and we all had to shut down, we did some virtual community building meetings and people really loved it. And then when, kind of protests started, we brought a great speaker, Mark Hunter, in on that. And so we thought, let's do something that's really relevant that maybe people can resonate with. And we came up with this challenge that we're hearing from everyone, which is just how stressful it is for parents. It was stressful enough when COVID started back in March, but then to go into a new school year with school-age children and worrying that your children maybe aren't keeping up, or worrying about some of the social issues that they may be facing, or just trying to manage your own time and dealing with all of that stress. Sometimes when people are all in the same house and parents are kind of looking forward to getting a break when their kids are in school, that's not happening anymore. And so there's a lot of stress and a lot of craziness going on. And so I'm so excited. I'm going to introduce you to Kimberly in a little bit, but Kimberly Gerber is a long-time associate of mine. We've just known each other for a really long time. And she's been a coach forever. And but more recently, she's had 3 young children and really gone into the space of supporting parents through these challenging times. And I think it's just going to be wonderful to have the conversation that we're going to have with her tonight. So one of the things that we'd like to do as a group is try to simulate the fact that we used to network just a little bit before our speaker would start. And so I am going to break you up into random breakout rooms. And I have a couple of questions for you, and I'm putting them in the chat right now. So let me see if I can let's hit enter here. There, I just put them in 5. So there's 2 questions. Actually, there's kind of 3 questions, but only 2 written down. So in the breakout rooms, what I would like you to do is discuss with each other who in your life is affected or stressed in some way related to the challenges parents have with childhood children, school-age children during COVID. So you may not have school-age children yourself. Maybe you have grandchildren. Maybe you have friends who have school-age children. Maybe you're coaching parents of school-age children. Maybe you're coaching leaders and organizations that have people on their team that are parents with school-age children. So there's a lot of different scenarios, but I would like you to think about one that affects you personally so that you can really make the material that we talk about today very relevant to you and your situation and the people that you're connecting with. And then I'd like you to think of, whoever you think of, I'd like you to think of what are their biggest challenges? What's the most stressful for them? So that's the question I don't have written down. But once you think of that person or those people, think of what you've noticed is the most stressful for them. And then after thinking about those 2 things, what I'd like each of you to do is individually think of one question that you would like to ask Kimberly when we start our discussion with her. So when we start a discussion with her, I'm going to be interviewing her and we're going to be talking back and forth. But just like we did with Adam Quiney a few weeks ago, we're going to be asking you for your questions too. So we can really facilitate a nice discussion. We've got a nice intimate group tonight, and I think it can be really powerful. So before I break you up into breakup rooms, does anyone have any questions about what we're going to do? Nope. Okay. All right. So it's just going to take me a minute to figure this out, or Nor, do you want to do it?
I think you have to do it. I'm not seeing.
All right.
I'm not seeing it on my end.
It looks like I can. So I'm just going to assign breakout rooms. And
the only thing I'm going to recommend is we pause, because when you are in breakout room, it still keeps recording emptiness. So I'm going to pause.
Get the recording and turn it back.
I did.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah,
all right, great.
Just did.
Excellent. So what we're going to do now is get started with our guest speaker. But I want you to all remember the question that you came up with, because I'm going to get Kimberly started talking a little bit, but this is a very intimate group. We've all just had some interesting conversations. We want to make this relevant to you. So I will be opening it up for your questions to Kimberly, and we're just going to discuss as long as it's an interesting and stimulating discussion for all of us, or until we run out of time, whatever happens first, okay?
Nahid?
So, yes.
Sorry, do you mind if we introduce the board real quick?
Go ahead.
I forgot to do that. So I'd love to introduce the board. We have Nahid, who is the programs director. We have Doug, who is community relations. We have Greta, who's membership and incoming president. We have Camber, who is corporate outreach. I'm laughing because, anyways, corporate outreach, and then Petra, who is also corporate outreach. So say hi, everyone.
Hi. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nahid.
All right. So let me introduce you to my friend, Kimberly. Kimberly Gerber is the founder of Accelerate, an innovative leadership development firm specializing in coaching executives and their teams. For 30 plus years, Kimberly has helped transform the impact of more than 1,500 leaders across industry-leading companies, including Verizon, Allergan, Whirlpool, Revance, I don't know if I pronounced that right, Revance, Blizzard, UCLA, Westcom, and many others. The creator of several innovative leadership development programs, Kimberly helps senior leaders create strategic vision, build strong cultures, elevate leadership presence, and finesse communication to strengthen their impact on teams and organizations. Committed to lifelong learning, she completed undergrad and graduate studies in communication, attained her coaching certification with Newfield Network, is an MBTI master practitioner and LACBA certified mediator. Kimberly lives in Irvine, California with her husband and 3 children. Welcome, Kimberly. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
So excited to have you. So, Kimberly, you have direct experience with parenting school-age children during COVID, as well as managing a business full-time. And there was also a time when you had your 3 young children and your full-time business, and you were struggling with cancer. So I was just wondering if you could share just a little bit about your growth through this time, and maybe how it brought you to this point where you're providing tools for parents to deal with this situation now.
Sure. You know, it's interesting, and I know we were talking just before the call. You mentioned, you know, I had a business, just for background. You know, I spent, you know, 12 years in corporate America working in marketing companies. I worked for Starbucks and I worked for Fleetwood, and I was the marketing director there for, you know, for 12 years in those 2 companies. And then I left, I took a COO job for a .com, and then I started my business. And had my business for a number of years before I had children. And so when I had children, it really was never a conversation in my head or with my husband about, was I going to continue, running a business and being a coach and a consultant. And so I had, my first daughter, and then, 2 years later, I had twins. And so I had a company and I had three, children in diapers. And it was that at that point in time, and this is going back now 12 years, that I decided I had to give up some things. I had to give up my office and I had to give up some staff, the way I was working with them, so that I could be a mom too. And that was when I first started working from home. And being a person who naturally likes some organization, I had to develop some systems and some boundaries and some ways to be able to navigate those two things. And the reason I bring that up is because, I've been building a toolkit for working from home and navigating, how do you be a parent and how do you also be a good other, a good professional at the same time and feel good about that. So what I've been doing with, clients and what I've been putting out to help others during COVID really didn't just emerge in March of this year. It's really been something that I've been working on personally for more than a decade. When my twins were 3, so my first daughter was in kindergarten, I had cancer. And I know, people hear that and they're like, "Oh, wow." It was not an easy, chapter in my life in many ways, but it was one that really brought about many blessings. I think before then, I really felt like I could do it all. I could be equally high at all levels. And it was really that particular opportunity, I call it, that helped me understand how to hold boundaries and how easy it was, deceptively easy, to rearrange things in my favor. And again, I bring that up because that's also an important part of making the whole parenting and working from home all together, kind of that all in the family, making that work. I think a lot of times parents are afraid to either set boundaries with themselves and their partners and their children or the people that they work with. But what my cancer journey told me was that you could, and people were going to be amazingly supportive, or they weren't even going to notice. So those are some kind of historical things that when COVID happened, my experience, and it might be different from other parents and other folks, but my experience happened in 2 phases. The first phase was on March 15th, they told us that our kids were going to be out for 3 weeks. It was going to be a long spring break. I live in Irvine. That's what Irvine did. And I was like, cool, I can handle that, not a problem. But before that ended, we got, of course, the notice that said now we were going to be out indefinitely. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had a moment. I don't have many moments, but I had a moment where I thought I'm going to die. I'm going to lose my mind because I cannot, do everything I have to do and have, my husband at home and have, all my 3 kids at home and them to be doing virtual learning. And then I realized, wait a minute, I got this, and I kind of dug out some of my tools and resources from when the kids were at home with me, which it'd been a few years. And I kind of dusted them off and I thought to myself, I can do this. And I put together a schedule and I mapped things out for the kids. We had a family meeting. I told my husband what his jobs were going to be. Of course, you are getting some insight to my personality here. And it wasn't that straightforward. Of course, I involved him in some of the discussion. But I certainly met his needs in the process. And then I thought, I was talking with my team and I was saying, do you think that other people would benefit from this? And they were like, yes, you've got to share this stuff. And so I started to put out some blogs and to share some of the tools, and ended up creating a fairly robust series of resources that as COVID went on and on and on, I continued to run into new challenges with my kids, and to solve them in a way that, of course, there's no perfection here in the household, my household, but it's productive. And as a parent, I feel great. And I know I'm serving my clients at the highest level that I can. And it's all because, in part systems, but it's also because of perspective. And so I think that, Nahid, knowing some of that, I think that's maybe why she asked me to come and speak with you today. So hopefully I answered your question fully.
You did. I want to thank you so much for that. And I think this is a great time to just take it out to you. I don't know if I have all of you on the screen right now, but I think I do. And if anybody has a question, you thought of a question in your breakout rooms, if anyone has a question that they'd like to maybe ask Kimberly now, you can just raise your regular hand and then unmute yourself and ask it, and we'll sort you all out. But yeah, let's dig into this a little bit more. I'm seeing quiet people.
Hi, Kimberly. This
Hi.
is April. Hi. It's so nice to it was so your what happened with you. I so resonate with it. I have a school-age child, and I just remember that moment when they said this is going to continue on, and I thought, but I'm not going to. I won't continue on. I don't know how this is going to work and continue to be successful. So because it feels like it's so ever changing, and I feel like I don't have a handle on it. What would you suggest as far as supporting, parents that could come to me to be coached when I feel like I don't even know what the heck I'm doing?
Well, so what are you doing that is working?
I'm getting up every morning and I'm still trying.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be the best.
Yeah. I think that as a coach and as coaches, I think that we approach, I think our opportunity is to approach this challenge like we would approach any challenge. And, there's many coaches, right here, right now, and we're going to have as many different approaches to solving problems. And I think it is trusting ourselves to be able to look at this situation and say, okay, how do we coach someone out of this? My background is, kind of at the ontological approach that Newfield, their foundations, and that is, looking at the whole person. Okay. And also my other background and what I do, in consulting is strategy. So I'm always looking at how does this problem, and in this, how does this impact the whole person? So not just how do we get our works fit in here, or how do we get to make sure that the kids are, on Zoom at the right time every day, which, by the way, is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yes.
How do you do that? Or, and how do you also get your work done and then have just a little bit of time left for yourself, right? So for me, it's, I look at these things as puzzles to be solved. And I love to help my clients break down what they have in terms of time, and what they have in terms of priority. I recommend a couple of reading resources for my clients. One is Essentialism. Has anyone read that? Familiar with that book? Okay. So do you agree it's a great book, Doug? Yeah. It's a great book for this time because we can't do everything. And so the kind of the idea of essentialism is to strip it down to the basics. What do you have to do? What is most important? And then let everything else go. So COVID's helped us with some of that. But then the other problem and the other advice, the other thing I think a lot of people, parents then want to kind of fill in all the gaps, have to, we've gotten maybe so we don't have as much help in our house. So not only do we have the kids and the work, and everyone in the house together, now we've also maybe let go of our housekeeping resources or some other resources, and we've got to cook more because we can't go out. So there's the compounded amount of activity that's happening in the household as well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it is looking at who can do what. So one of the tools I created was the schedule. And then another tool that I created was, so I found my kids, and this is kind of fun to share with your clients who have kids who are watching TV or playing a lot of electronics, because as parents, we probably all allowed our kids to play more in this time frame than we may have in the past. I know initially I did, and then I thought, oh my God, that's going to be really hard to unwind after a year. So I also noticed my house was getting really messy with everyone in it all the time. So I created a chore commission program to where my kids now have to earn their screen time by doing chores. And they can choose whether they want to get paid for them or they want to spend time on their electronics. But they do it every day. There's an above the line that they have to do, and there's a below the line that they can choose to do. And then what they earn, they spend. And if they don't earn it, they don't get it. And that's had terrific implications. I think, yeah, I no longer have to fight about the screen time. I don't have to, I don't have to spend my own money on, boba time or other things, right? They're appreciating the value of money more because they're earning it, and then they're figuring out how to have to spend it. But the other thing is that before COVID, my kids could not do their own laundry, cook a meal, change their own sheets, vacuum the floor. They didn't even know what Swiffer was. Now they do all of that. 10 and 12, and they're much more capable. Cooking dinner too. So I think that when we're thinking about, what can we do for ourselves and our kids, and then also what are some resources that we can bring to our clients who might be struggling, it's like kind of teasing out some ideas based on what is the problem, the specific problem that they're having. And it's going to be different. For me, it was screen time and a messy house. And I created a solution for that, that I have since shared with many people who think that that's fantastic, a fantastic way to control the screen time, and some other things. So I think that it's as coaches, it's just being coaches, and even if we haven't solved it for ourselves, use our clients' problem that may in turn end up helping us solve our own problems, and we know that happens in coaching.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Who else has a question for Kimberly?
Hey, Kimberly, this is Timmy.
Hi.
Hi. I really resonated when you mentioned that you were using a schedule, because I've noticed that that's very effective when moms have to go home after being in corporations, that they're used to very scheduled lifestyles, and then they get home and they don't remember that they should probably apply the same thing. What are some other paradigms that we might need to be changing in the future? We have some unspoken expectations about who's responsible for the kids, who should quit their job and stay home, who should do, like you were saying, the Swiffer, the changing the sheets, the laundry.
Yeah.
What are some of the paradigms, do you think? Like, what would be the categories, or, are there 5 or 7 paradigms we need to re-examine?
Well, I think that there's, if you're thinking about the schedule, I think it's a lot about, who does what in the household and when. And I'm one of the things I'll share with the group is I'll share the scheduling. It's a tool. It's not just a template that you kind of fill in. It actually walks you through how to think about scheduling. And that may be the answer that you're looking for in terms of what are all the things that we need to think about as a household, and how to go through the process in terms, also in terms not just of what, who's doing what, but how to communicate it, how to get buy-in from your partner, or how to get buy-in from the kids. I think that's a really important part of the process. One of the paradigms, and it's an additional tool. It's not in the scheduler, but I'll provide all of these to you guys, and you can use them or not use them. Look at them for ideas. But one of the things that I found, this was over the summer when the kids weren't in school, was they were really like, what do I do? My husband works for JPL, and he had the Mars mission, and so we were really that was something he needed to go to Florida in July, and so we were really sequestered. We didn't have a pod of people. We just really were staying in, and so the kids were. It was the three of them. As you know, if you've had kids at this age, all they want to do is fight. And they really didn't have much direction in their day. And so one of the paradigms that I brought from coaching to the kids that I never would have was to help them set their own goals for the day. And so they, had a weekly kind of, daily goal, tool. And I called it 5-Point Friday. And basically if they met their micro goals during the week, they got something special on Friday. And they had to track it, and it was something that they could have fun with. And so I think that there's lots of areas where we can challenge ourselves to help our kids become more resilient. And what I would say was so important for me as a parent, and this might resonate, was that going into, once I realized, like many of us, that it wasn't going to be a short thing, it was going to be a longer thing. One of my fears is I do a lot of generational research just because it's an interest of mine. I don't talk on it or teach on it or anything. It's just interesting to me. But one of the things that is, there's a lot of research on is how afraid, how security concerned this current generation is. And COVID's going to make that much, much worse. And so one of my concerns for my own family, my own kids, was that they not, be afraid coming out of this, that they be resilient. And so that's another paradigm, I think, Timmy, that I think needs to be challenged is, and not challenged in a negative way, but challenged in a positive way for parents is, what are we doing to help ensure that our kids emerge from this with greater resiliency? Mm-hmm. And having them do chores, letting them walk to the grocery store or to get a boba time in a safe way, but by themselves. Those are kinds of things that I think that, we can challenge what we might have allowed before or not allowed, and really think about, okay, what are we doing to allow our kids to build resiliency and a sense of self-security and self-sufficiency when so many messages everywhere else are telling us to be afraid.
Good point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Kimberly, one of the things that came up in our small group, and I'm wondering if you ran into this issue at all. You made a little bit of a joke about it in the beginning, but I think we all run into this, and that is, spouses sometimes look at things differently, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things, Sharon, I don't mean to be stealing your idea, but I got it from you, and it just latched onto my brain, and that is, was it challenging for you to kind of get your husband to buy in to your plan? And have you run into parents or friends that have had situations where the parents are not agreeing really about whether to send the kids to school or whether to keep them home if they have that option, or how to organize things? And any insights on that?
Well, it's interesting. My husband and I are definitely not on the same side he is more safety conscious, and he's more concerned about that, and I am more risk tolerant, I guess. Not too far, not too far. I mean, I'm an excellent corporate citizen, but in general, that's just generally how we are, and we recognize that. For us, for me personally, and I think this is, in coaching, I'm not a marriage and family counselor, so I would defer to any of you in the group that are. But in general, being a mediator, it's finding out what's most important, and where people can meet in the middle. So I know for myself and my husband, it's I understand what his boundaries are and what's really important to him, and then he also knows that he can only push my buttons so far, and at a certain point I'm gonna not wear the mask that he wants me to wear. I'm going to wear the mask I want to wear, and so you guys would laugh if some of the stuff that he sends me, it's really funny, but I recognize, he works up at JPL, he's immersed in this type of stuff. They work in clean room environments. So I appreciate his perspective. And I think I know that I'm often, whether it's this issue or any issue, as a coach, I'm often trying to help people shift perspectives so that they can communicate their own needs more effectively, and then meet. It's not always the middle, but to meet where they need to meet, so that the friction doesn't turn from healthy friction into unhealthy friction.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments about this? I know we do have some therapists on the call.
Yeah, someone else may answer that a lot better than I could.
Camber, you need to go. Camber, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm learning. Kimberly, so you having given a description of your family,
mm-hmm.
So with your husband's posture and yours, how did that guy go to Florida and come back into your home again with his concerns?
Oh, it's an excellent question. And as you would expect, he self-quarantined in his office, and between his office and our bedroom, which I was not allowed in, for 5 days after he got back.
Oh. Okay.
So, and when he was walking around the house, he wore an N95 mask.
You've got to be kidding me.
I am not.
Does he have a gun does he use a gun to take his temperature, and he doesn't go that far?
No. Yes. No, we do.
You have the gun.
Well,
I want a gun.
We do have a gun.
Okay.
But, we had the gun because we had kids.
Right. And therein lies my second question. So you said I hope I'm not hogging anybody's time here. You have 3 children, 2 are twins. Are the twins boy or girls? Are they both, or what?
One of each.
A boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the third one is what?
A girl.
So you have 2 girls and a boy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in all reality, you've got 3 live animals in your house who are caged,
yes,
with great minds and very even-keeled parents.
Mm-hmm.
Have they grown to be more leery of each other, or have they grown more interested in each other? What has happened to those 3 children in this situation, in your opinion?
So they have learned how to navigate one another a little bit better. They have to work as a team to get the house clean, right? So they fight as much as they ever did, and they've always gotten along 60% of the time. That was always my goal, that they would fight only 40% of the time. And I would say that probably hasn't changed too much, but they play games together. They invite things to do. The girls actually are getting along much better. My older daughter, will bring the younger one with her if she's going, with her friends on a walk, or to take the dog out, or to go to boba time. they still fight quite a bit. But they have had to learn that they've got to work together to get stuff done if any of them want to watch TV or play on their games.
And have they not at one point wanted to invite friends over? Aren't they getting a little bit more like, whether good or bad, relaxed and wanting to really, encourage you to let them have that some freedom? Are you dealing with that?
We are. And so after my husband got back in July, we agreed and had pre-agreed that after he got back that we would loosen up a little bit. There would be a handful of families that we would interact with. And so today might have been the first time we allowed other kids in the house for an hour or so, but we've let the kids play outside without masks with a small group. And my son plays club soccer, and so he's been playing in the squares, and now they're moving to scrimmages. So that is lightening up. But I would say that the kids have acclimated to the mask wearing way better than most adults. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that, but they're in school now. So we did allow our kids to go back to school. I've got one in hybrid and the twins are full time.
Okay. And last but not least, out of our pod, our question was, have you had to come up with challenges? And now, as I understand it, you're strictly a corporate coach, which I think you've made clear. Mm-hmm. So in the conditions of your work, are your clients having issues having private time to be able to yak with you?
I have not found that to be the case.
No, huh? Are most of them in their offices or are they at home?
I would say 60% are at home.
And they all have that private space.
There's one that doesn't. One works from his bed. So
Is he a hooker?
No, he's a brilliant creative guy.
Wow.
But he is, it's funny because like in the beginning, when this was all happening, like I was like, why are you moving? Like I could tell his camera is moving. He's like, it's like the only place I can get, my own space is in my bed. So I'm sitting here in my bed talking to you. I was like, check. Right. So there's that, but for the most part, for the most part, my clients have reasonably private spaces in their houses, even if it's like, a closet somewhere.
Right. I've been in that. Okay. Thank you for answering those questions.
You're welcome.
This is Timmy. Oh, I was just going to piggyback off the last comment about clients that have kids when you're trying to work with them. Mm-hmm. In our pod, I was talking about that I've got a couple that have 4-year-olds in the background, and they're males that I'm talking to, and we're trying to talk serious, but they've got these 4-year-olds in the background that are hungry or playing with dolls out loud or something. Mm-hmm. And it requires, you really have to focus on what's being said and just let it go. It's like when dogs bark in the background under normal circumstances, you just sort of have to let it go. But right. It is distracting, and it is sometimes very draining.
Yeah. And I just think to myself how draining it is for, the parents that are working in that environment. It reminds me, I don't know if anyone recalls the show Super Nanny. Where every house she went into, the mom or the dad was like, they had their computer station, which was this wide, set up in the middle of a chaotic kitchen connected to a playroom. And I just remember it used to give me like heart palpitations to think of that. I think that challenging those folks, are they in that space for the safety of the children because they're the primary caregiver in that time frame? Or have they just not thought about where in their house they could create quiet space? And I would, as a coach, and I haven't run into that, but if that was like an ongoing thing, I would bring that up as a conversation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
maybe
they're
they
the
have,
primary. They're in charge during that period of time.
I
And they're the
should.
males in charge,
yeah,
and they're working for the government, and they're not allowed to go to the base where they work.
that is
Kimberly,
tough.
this is
So,
Jennifer. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
I'm just curious. I know that if I tell coach to coach, right? If I tell or ask any of my clients right now that are overwhelmed parents, hey, read this book, they're going to laugh in my face. So I'm curious, like 3 takeaways from essentialism that we can work with our clients would be what?
First and foremost, focus on what's essential. And there's a discipline to that, that that the kind of the book would explain. I can send you the cliff notes from the book, but it's really stripping down what is essential and what's not essential. And in times like this, we can get really clear about that. And then the other thing is to set routines. Routines sound boring, but they're a saving grace in a time like this. And so it's really to focus on micro routines that can be done every day that create a long term or even midterm create big gains. And then the other is to have a mindset that is focused. It's one thing, it's to create what's essential, and then the other is to it's to have a mindset of maintaining the essential and not holding ourselves to the world or to somebody else's standard. So as a parent in a situation like this, we can feel really guilty because we aren't spending enough quality time, because maybe we are letting our kids watch too much TV. And so it's really having an optimal mindset. And, when we are feeling low or we're starting to feel anxious, it's to really, have a routine to reframe, to get clear, and to focus on what is essential and not carry everything we can't do. If we were all doing it perfectly, there would still be so many things we couldn't do the way we'd want to, so many things we couldn't give our time to in this. And so it's deciding what is going to be sacrificed and to suffer that we didn't have to in the past, and not let it be a reflection of our identity. Because I think that is what's happening for a lot of parents today, especially mothers. I think that more mothers than fathers probably feel this tension of insufficiency. Not exclusively, of course, but I think that is possibly and probably the case in a lot of households.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Kimberly?
Yes.
I want to sort of make an observation, but then I want you to sort of comment on it. The schedule sort of assumes a premise that I find is really key for coaches and for our clients. And it gets to your last point about mindset. I think a lot of the problems that are being caused are the result of thinking that I can still do the same amount of work in the same amount of time that I used to be able to do.
Yeah.
And yet I've got all of these other things, whether it's kids that need schooling, whether it's we can't go out to dinner and relax, whether we can't go for a ride, I can't get away by myself or whatever. But I find that for me and for my clients, the first step is to sort of get them to get realistic about what can really be accomplished in this environment.
Yep.
And I think as you picked it up just before I asked that, it's the mindset that makes the schedule then work.
Yes. Yes. I think that you're spot on. It's foolishness on any of our part to think that we can work a full 8 or 10-hour day while we have kids, and it be, in a constant stream, or that it be at the same level of high productivity we could in an office. Now, in some cases, I've had a lot of clients say that they are more productive, except for all the Zoom meetings, Because they're not at the water cooler, because so and so can't hop in their office. But on the flip side of that, it is, I've also had to work through with certain clients how to break up their day so that they can be sufficiently parent and dedicated employee. And I've even navigated some conversations with some leaders of people like that so that they could, that they could understand and embrace a new work schedule. And that's one of the things that I encourage people to do is don't think anything's impossible and rethink absolutely everything. So I know some people have to get up early and take, an early shift so that they can then parent, or, an early shift at work. And I say shift, but I mean like an early, work earlier than they normally would, so that then they can break and be a parent, and then they can come back to work and then break and be a parent. And so that, the scheduling has to be really thoughtful. People who are lucky enough to have a partner in the house, it can be made easier because you can divide the day and conquer.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But your point is spot on.
Excellent. Other questions? Nanor.
So our group, when we spoke, one of the things that, a question that we had is the stress of some of the kids in developing their friendships, that the social aspect, because they're so, it's just not as natural as it used to be, because they're not with their peers.
Yes.
So how do we support parents around that, I guess, is our question.
So I think that there's a couple of good best practices that I would share, that can be shared. One is to set up, we're used to setting up play dates for our kids. It's to set up the Zoom play dates. And sometimes with kids, especially the younger kids, it can't just be to get on a call. There's lots of games that they can play together. And so if they can, be on Zoom or be on a FaceTime or a house party and play the game together, it feels much more like, like you want it to feel. There's some social, it's not just they're playing on a game and they can't see each other. If anyone is parenting boys, boys tend to want to play a lot of the Nintendo, the Switch games and other things. And so there's headsets that have microphones. And so even though they can't see their friends, they can talk to them as they're playing the same game. Those things have been great. I know in our house, our kids have developed incredibly rich relationships with their cousins in New York, because what we did was we unrestricted the time they could spend on Zoom or FaceTime or electronics with their cousins. I don't know why we felt like that was what we could do, but we did. We said, we didn't say it as a thing. It's just we wouldn't, it was like, oh, if they're with, Riley or Lexi or Jordan or Colin, like, whatever. We felt like that was an investment in family. And so they've had some marathon sessions there. Something else that I did when the kids were going to school, but they weren't, when they were just distance learning, was within the neighborhood, a couple of the parents and I, we sent the kids out to lunch together. So they would go out for 20 or 30 minutes with their brown bag lunch, and so that they would have some social time, and then they would come back home and get back on their Zoom calls, just trying to introduce some normalcy, to their day to day. So it's just trying to be as creative as possible. And again, it's kind of, what are you going after, or what's most important to your client? Because if you remember, what was important to me was that the kids didn't emerge from this scared, and so at every turn I'm thinking, how do I keep them safe and also keep them social, keep them engaging and interacting.
You know, that the generation that you're talking about, is that like the younger kids, or is that even high school kids?
It's even the
Both?
high school kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, would you say this is why maybe we have more suicides at that age group, perhaps?
It's part of it. I think that that's a complex, I think that's a complex issue, but a lot of it is a part of it. That and social media, you know, they're more connected, but more lonely as a group, but that's a completely different conversation. But yeah,
Could
that
you
happens in the world.
Could you also speak a little bit about the social aspect, but with older kids, like high school kids who, may have, they were in middle school and now they're in high school and now they're in a different school and they're, not there all the time and
Yeah,
developing friendships and so forth.
I think that I've got a 7th grader in that situation. So not high school, which is a different level, but transitioning from elementary school into the new school. So a couple of friends are the same, but for the most part, in classes with people that she doesn't know, on Zoom with a lot of faces that are, strange to her. And we talked about that before she started school. And, it's allowing her to cluster with the people that she does know, and remind her of how she's friendly and she makes friends easily. And I think it is, every child's different, but I think it is about, as a parent, just reminding them that that this too shall pass, and while it'll take longer to make friends, there are things they can do. And again, this is where I would go to, coaching. How do we help our clients build social capital, in whether, we're coaching, business owners, or we're coaching people in organizations. We are, a lot of us are helping people, build connections. And I think it's taking that down to, this environment, because people are people. We're still the same. And we're afraid of new situations, and, we don't want to necessarily, kids don't want to talk up on Zooms. I am sure of that. I listen to her on Zooms and all I hear is the teacher and none of the kids. So I would just be encouraging, and then try to make up strategies that fit that situation and that child.
Thank you.
So Kimberly, one thing I'm wondering is, have you noticed maybe sort of 2 or 3 top ways, top mistakes that parents make, or top things that maybe cause the most stress?
Oh, top things that cause the most stress. It's funny. I have a list of things that, things that folks are doing, that aren't working in their favor. And, Doug, you brought up one, which is, it's top of my list, is thinking that they can do it all. I think that that's a big one. There's no shame, or it's not, a failure in any way to say, I can do less today. And besides, I think it might set us off in a better trajectory to kind of embrace that and say, I get to do less today. So I try and help people shift that thinking into, okay, how does this benefit you? And again, that's something that having cancer really taught me, to look for the silver linings and to shift perspective really quickly in times like this. I think not having a plan is a mistake that a lot of folks are making. They're just kind of letting every day come. I have a friend who was off and all the way, from a work perspective, she just wasn't working and wasn't able to work. And, 2 or 3 months into it, she was like, gosh, I haven't done anything. I was like, do you have a plan? Do you have an intention? And she was like, I should get one. And I was like, yeah, you should. So I think that if a household is really struggling, it's probably because they don't have a plan. So that's one. Not communicating needs clearly, I think is something that's always can be a challenge, but especially now. Not expecting enough from the kids. They can be heavy lifters. So I would, it's one of those things where as a parent, think about what people, 50 years ago were asked to do, and our kids are able to do those same things. So I would encourage anyone whose children don't have household responsibility, like real household responsibility, to give them some. And then, go ahead.
I don't want to, don't forget where you are. I love this. But you also mentioned earlier something about enrolling the kids so that they can, do the house chores without forcing them.
Yeah.
So to speak. So what does that look like? I've always had a hard time around that.
Okay. Well, you might like some of the tools I'm going to share with you guys.
Oh, okay, good.
It does walk through that, but really it's just like it is for us as adults. If you do this and do it with a good attitude and do it well, you're going to get this. And this is the thing I know you want. And then there doesn't have to be a fight about it. And now that's not to say that they never fight and they never I don't want to, but they come around real quick. And I have a 3-day rule. So this is something I learned as a parent with my first daughter. 2 things. And I use this in coaching all the time. First is start like you want it to go. Which of course now we're hopefully halfway through COVID or more. But start like you want it to go. So if you want not to be the person with all the responsibility in the house, don't take it on, which is sometimes feels a little counterintuitive. Sometimes we feel like maybe we're not being a great parent, but if you don't want it, don't, distribute it from the beginning. So start like you want it to go, and then everything's going to be painful for the first 3 days. It isn't going to work. It's going to be a cluster. People are going to fight you. It's not going to work for the first 3 days. And then miraculously it will.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of parents suffer with not being able to get their kids to sleep because they can't get through the first 3 days of screaming. It feels awful. You feel like a bad parent, but then all of a sudden they sleep through the night and you're like, okay, that was good. That was good. And then now they can sleep through the night. It's like that with anything. Rolling out a program at work or rolling out a program in your kitchen. 3 days, painful. Stick with it.
I love it.
If there's one gem I'm taking tonight, it's the 3-day rule. Because I think anyone can make it through 3 days of pain. If it's going to be a month of pain, sometimes I think, oh my God, I'm not going to make it through this.
No. 3 days, it really does start to get better. I don't know what the magic of 3 days is, but it's really there.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else has a question for Kimberly? Just unmute yourself and launch right in.
Kimberly.
Yes.
We've been talking about the children. Let's shift for a minute and talk about the spouses in the family. Mm-hmm. Because I think that relationship has changed also during COVID.
Sure.
And I'll just use my own example. Prior to COVID, after spending all day either on the phone or in clients' offices, when I came home in the evening, I didn't want to talk a lot. I had listened to enough people all day long. I wanted to just sort of be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I don't get to go to the client's office, now that I'm just on the phone or Zoom, I'm missing that connection. And so when my wife gets home from her childcare duties, I mean, I'm attacking her and going, let's talk. I need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
So, and it took a while for us to realize that things had changed. What's with you, Doug? So, not that we ever sat down and recognized it, but the relationship needed some restructuring because of the environment.
Yep.
And I don't hear many people recognizing it, and I suspect it's going on with other than just me.
I imagine you're right. I think that, for us, we did a couple things, my husband and I, and we do still occasionally. In the beginning, we started having happy hour. You can't see my office, but I have, because I work from home, I have basically the bonus room is my office. And so I've got a couch and some chairs in here. And so the kids would be downstairs and we would just, have a glass of wine or a beer up here. And that was kind of our, something that we did, but we had never done. But, as a couple, we, would not have beer or wine at night. But in COVID time, it all of a sudden seemed like, that's like an appropriate thing to do. But for us, it was a way to kind of connect over the news of the day, with the kids not, present and listening to that kind of negativity that we were just kind of catching each other up on, and to decompress. And I think that was for us, it was a good thing. I think that we've probably a little bit more or less gone back to, normal. But I don't know. There are some other people here who might be better off, and I want to invite them to weigh in, who might be working with couples.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in too. I'd like to hear other people that have noticed differences in your own relationships or, have had your clients tell you about differences they've had. I can say just for my own share, things have definitely changed with my husband and I in that we've started talking a lot more about things that we never talked about before. And we've been married over 25 years. So we've had plenty of time to talk before, but we just never bothered. And now we just find ourselves in situations and where we're talking more. So I'm more like you, Doug. And it's kind of nice. It's like it's a change for the better for us.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear some of the rest of you. Like, how have your relationships changed, or if you have clients that have had relationships that have changed, what's come up for you? Don't all talk at once. Sharon.
Yeah, I guess I've seen sort of the other end of the spectrum because I tend to work with a few clients and more from a counseling perspective than coaching. So they're already in kind of a bad place. And some of the stress of COVID has just made it more challenging for them. Things that were like below the surface are, rising above the surface.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of them aren't making it, but as hard as they try. So I think that's another piece and having to manage the kids with that stress of a relationship that's been challenging is even like harder.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I feel like one thing that COVID's done is taken all of us to an extreme, like in one direction or another, right? So if you've had underlying issues or tensions or stress or mental health issues or problems at home that you were really just kind of coping with barely before, they all get worse. And then, then for many people, things get better. But it's like things seem to get really better for some people and really worse for others. I guess sad and good at the same time, depending on who.
That I get to hang out with, the majority of them are having really pinnacle reconsiderations about
Mm-hmm.
who they are and their relationship to their work, their relationship to their lovers, to all of the immediate circle. It kind of like brought up all their shit. And for the first time, you can't just go shopping to get rid of it, or you can't just go to the office and dump it and then come back in full fold, all refreshed like nothing ever happened. But a lot of the more mature people, so people over 50 that I deal with, are wondering if they want to, not wondering, they're doubting that they want to keep doing what they've been doing, and they want to reinvent themselves, or they want to reimagine something. But so much identity is brought into their work, it just scares the hell out of them to think about, even if they're financially secure, there's something so much more happening to people that I perceive as a blessing. You know, anytime you get so mad inside, it's the worst feeling, and it can become one of the most incredible transformations. So I see a lot of people, I don't see people having trouble with their with their marriages as much as their marriage to their career.
Mm-hmm.
So have you had, Miss Kimberly, in the people that you work with, are you having some people want to jump ship because suddenly they've had some leverage in time and starting to redecide who they are?
Well, I have had people think, so glued to their computer and their desk, and just really having a new appreciation because they're in the same space for how unbalanced their life is. And how, so it hasn't necessarily been with career change away from their roles, but there's definitely been an awareness and some concrete decision making about how much work is really worth it. Yeah, and the other thing that a lot of my clients are struggling with because of this, and is, and it does affect, for some of them, kind of their house, is feeling trapped and not being if they have extroverted personality preferences, then they feel like there's another stress there. So that's something that I'm seeing almost more than wanting to leave, their role. And that just could be the kind of coaching that we're doing. I'm not seeing so much of that, but definitely people wanting to work less and be on Zoom less. Work less and work at a higher level, and really just being on Zoom, I think, has really brought into people's focus how much time is wasted in meetings.
On the other side of that, though, what I'm observing is that what has kept many people tied to their company was the social relationships. And now that they don't have those social relationships at the same level, they're thinking about, do I want to keep working? Do I want to retire? Do I want to look for a different job? Do I want to go back to work ever? It's opened up a whole new set of possibilities. Right. I think when we go back to whatever normal is, people aren't going to go back to whatever normal is.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Now, what do the rest of you notice in terms of big changes with your clients? I know this isn't exactly on the topic of parenting, but I am seeing this everywhere. And that is, I'm seeing it with my sister, I'm seeing it with my brother, I'm seeing it with people I coach. And that is, people now can work from home. And they, as you said, Camber, they're reevaluating everything. But what I'm seeing and hearing people do is they're thinking, I don't have to live here. And I don't like where I live. And now that I can work remotely, I can move. So tons of people are moving. But like both my brother and my sister, I mean, everything has changed for them because they can do their jobs. Their companies have decided to do complete remote work. So they're looking at buying land in remote areas. And the other thing they're thinking about is making family complexes, if possible. So, because one of the things that has happened to us is that we can't see each other as often being in different parts of the country because we have to, travel has become so ridden with, the possibility of getting sick or getting someone you care about sick. I haven't been able to see my dad, who's a lot older than me because of this, for over a year. And a lot of people are feeling this. So I'm not the first one that I've heard this from. Like, I have clients that have talked about that are moving to places that they think will really be good for them, either individually or where they can be closer to family. But I am hearing this idea of family complexes. I don't know if anyone else has heard that. So what have you heard, Jolie?
No, but I like it. I like
Yeah,
the
I know.
family complexes. Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard about that piece of it, but I do know personally several families, and then just in my coaching conversations, with individuals who are, exploring what's the next chapter for them, in terms of, work. I think so. People are leaving, communities and moving to, like Idaho. Everybody seems to be picking up and moving to Idaho. Wanting to get closer to, nature. And, I think with COVID and people wanting to have, all of the things that were restrictions that we have in place, I think there's a desire that people are wanting to, be out in nature more and having more freedom. And that brings up the environment of where you live, but it also brings up the freedom in terms of what's possible and what do people want professionally and what do they want, in the next, chapter of their life once COVID, is no longer here. So I'm hearing those kinds of conversations that tie into more kind of now that we've all kind of stepped off this fast moving train and we've had time to reflect and we've been isolated and have had this opportunity, I think that there's been a lot more of like meaning and purpose conversations and kind of shedding off all of the superficial stuff and getting kind of to that more authentic, deeper self, where people are tapping into kind of that wisdom. And I think that's the opportunity of, the silver lining in all of this, that I've had some good conversations with people about, personally and professionally. That's been refreshing and nice. So that's kind of what I'm sensing and honing in on these days lately and kind of my personal and professional life with folks.
Love that. The silver lining. And I think one of our questions, Kimberly, that we really wanted to kind of address towards the end here are what are some of the potential positive outcomes, not just of COVID, but about, working and schooling kids from home?
I'll just refresh. I think I kind of brought them up as I was talking, but I think that the silver linings that I think that are out there for us is, to the big silver lining with all of this is with the kids. As a parent, it's to kind of rethink the relationship and rethink and to help our kids be more resilient, help them to be more self-reliant, to feel responsible. It's when my 10-year-old son realized that he could actually Swiffer a floor, he made that his job because he felt proud of it. He felt proud, he could Swiffer a floor. And you can see that when the kids are actually doing things that are making meaningful contributions to the family, that builds their self-esteem, their self-worth, and then that changes what's possible in the relationship with parents. So we have a whole, new world of discussions that we can have and ways that we can reward them and relate to them as kids, but as kids who are really operating at a higher level. So it's, as a parent, I find so much more to be proud of them for. and they get that. So I think that that's a huge silver lining that can come out of all of this. This is a tough time. This isn't a good time, but there definitely are silver linings. And I think that the other things that you guys have been talking about is sometimes when we're forced to do something, we do it, and then we can sustain it if we've got an intention. And so being a parent right now forces more work-life balance. You have to throw up more boundaries at work because you actually have to parent. That doesn't have to change as this starts to, as we start to open up as a country again. We can keep that work-life balance. And that can be a huge silver lining for a lot of families.
And also I have to highlight, when you're referring to parenting, we have, 16 little kids sitting in this room right here, right? And I don't have any children. I think the people I care for are my children, so to speak. But what you're really flashing on me is for me to parent myself better, using, getting me to buy in, to do things I don't necessarily want to sit in my chair to do, or to start like I wanted to go. And last but not least, of course, go in knowing it's going to hurt for the first 3 days. I mean, I remember it hurting when I had to quit smoking at 38, a long time ago. It's those first 3 days that are dreadful. I mean, that's the worst habit I've been fortunate to have. But those first 3 days, it's all emotional, and then, it's all physical, and then it's just emotional after that.
Right.
So a lot of these things, it's parenting ourselves with all of us sitting here that we can then, slow drip into our clients. So I think that a lot of your insights cross over, not only for taking care of little people, but for taking care of ourselves.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad that is helpful. I'm glad that some of those things, I did learn them as a parent first, but I use them every day in coaching.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a little slightly different parenting experience. My only child is 27 and happens to be going to grad school online. So I have the pleasure of this year her being at home, and it's kind of really cool because as she's going to school online and I'm working at home, we're getting to have really deep, rich conversations about things in the world, and we also align a lot in our perspectives and that kind of thing. So we get to have very deep conversations, and it's very cool because it gives us the time and space where she is really putting out there, and she's always been very introverted and not always vocal, but she's putting out there, with me anyway, some very passionate, interesting things that she's been exploring and learning about and thinking through and talking to other people about. And so it's a different kind of, I'm not really parenting per se anymore, but it's really, I think, given us the opportunity to have a deeper connection.
I have heard, and Nahid, you might echo this as well. My own sister had her kids much earlier than I did, and so hers are college age and just beyond that. And she has loved COVID because she had all her kids home at a time in her life when she expected them to be fully gone. And she's really enjoyed this time for all the same reasons that you just shared. So that is a huge silver lining that some parents, are really fortunate to be able to experience. So I'm happy for you because I know that's a gift.
Yeah, I think it really is a gift to get. I mean, we've started family Zoom calls once a week and talk to each other more than we ever do. So there's all sorts of things that can open up. And I love your insight, Camber, about applying all of this to parenting ourselves, because I think every situation that I get into, like with someone else, whether it's my child or my spouse or a friend, I also get into with myself. So I just think that that was such an important point, and that really, really resonated with me. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up, and also extend it to the rest of the people in the room. You know, what has opened up for you as you've been absorbing all of this and applying it to yourself in your life?
I planted a tree. I never did that before.
That's awesome.
Gardening. Yeah, and I actually started not, which was a real shift for me. I'm always in a mode of, oh, I got to keep things going, and I got to keep things going. If I don't keep it going, it's going to die. I'm responsible for the whole ship here. And I decided to chill out and to write, and to spend the next 3 months to write a book, so I have a product, because I don't want to keep doing this for my entire life. I want to have some new sexy affairs. So it's given me the opportunity, and I'm fortunate that I have it, to slow down and to do other things that I typically would never have done. And I learned how to clean brass, which is really cool.
Wow. That's
Okay.
awesome.
That's
Who
right.
else?
The most.
Anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak up, would you like to share?
Can you ask the question again, Nahid?
I'm just asking kind of a general, I'm sort of moving to our wrap up, right?
Mhm.
So towards the end, we tend to like to talk about what's the most valuable thing that we're getting out of the conversation? What are we taking away from us? And I guess that's what I'd like to hear from everybody. A little bit of what are you taking away, and then we'll wrap up and say goodbye.
I love the 3-day tool. I'm going to try it on my husband because I don't have kids. Thank you for that.
I really love this, start the way you want it to go. I can't tell you how many times, you know, you take on everything and you're looking at everybody in your house going, well, why aren't you going to do it? But you set the boundaries, you set the rules. And so if you want it to happen, the end result to be different, then start it how you want it to end. And that was awesome. That was great.
Yep. Thank you. It forces us to be clear up front with what we want, so that we can start the way we want it to go. It's a really good fit principle to like kind of have etched in your brain there.
Well, I think especially now, because we're trying to make it work for everyone. And so we tend to take on more to keep the peace. And you got to realize that you can't maintain that forever. And I think that's kind of what I'm learning.
Yeah.
I guess this is Timmy. I guess I would jump in. You know, we started in the beginning talking about the cancer that you'd gone through, which triggered me because my daughter had gone through cancer, and it was a big. She was 17, and it was a big shift because she was going to move into her senior year in high school.
Oh, no.
And so one of the things I said to her, and so this is related, is I said, think about when this is all over and you've gone through radiation, you've gone through chemo and all the things that are going to happen that we don't even know yet. How do you want to be remembered, or how do you want to be, how do you want people to look at you? Like, you know, think about it now. What might be some of the challenges, and what would you be willing to declare now about the way you want it to go? And then, you know, we'll just see what happens. But I had her think about it, and she didn't really receive it very well at the time. She was in a lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
And it was just hard on everybody. But what she did was she chose not to cover her head when she lost all her hair, and she started inviting, she had a tennis teacher that was creative, and he started her out on this, and then she took it and ran with it. She invited people to do artwork on her bald head. And so she became known as this girl that would show up for massages or for acupuncture, who had cancer, but who had this decorated head. and
Really
and
neat.
and then they took pictures of it all. So they kept a log of all the things that people did with her bald head. And then at the end, she had a art show and chronicled, all this different artwork and sold it. And all the nurses and the doctors and the therapists and friends and family came and bought the art and bought the pictures. And she raised money so that more kids could have massages and acupuncture.
That's really special. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that. That's a really special story.
yeah, it was really cool. And then we had a chemo's over party, and somebody came up with the idea of just drawing her face with no hair. And then one of the things, it was outdoors, and we had tons of pens and tons of these faces, and everybody drew what her hair was going to look like when it grew back in, which was really also something we kept. So I think there's some lessons there, for now, of being agile and having some whim about the whole thing, and remembering that other people are suffering while you're suffering. A lot of people really hurt for her, but she would go to dances and she would have her head all decorated, and she'd have a dress on, and people would look at her, but she would just explain, yeah, I'm going through chemo right now. And so that's kind of like what I did here, where I work at home already. So I didn't have a really big change, but I'll tell you what has happened since March. My business doubled, and I don't know why, but it's quite the experience to be stuck at home and have even more coaching clients than you've ever had in your whole career. And so there's that. And so what I wanted to do was, I'm fairly extroverted, and I wanted to have something to do. So our condominium where I live took on a wood and paint project. It started in April, and I've been the project manager for that.
Oh, awesome.
So I run out and talk to the painters or talk to the wood people. Is everybody okay? Does anybody need water? I find the neighbors find me, and that's been my social life.
A great example of setting up your life to get what you need.
Yep. And then I also used my house as the staging area. So all the ladders, all the paint and everything was at my house every day. So always there were people outside, even if I didn't go out.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a blessing to your community there, because they,
thanks.
You're getting what you need, and they're getting
certainly did too. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that is a great example of a way that an extrovert can get some of that energy from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who else well, we have time for about maybe 2 more takeaways before we wrap up. So who else has a takeaway or something? Yes, Jolie.
Well, so along the same lines of what we were just talking about, getting what we need as parents, and and for our clients what they need, but then also for the children. I love the brown bag lunchtime. 20 minutes where the kids take their lunch out and they can connect with their friends, and they come back and they jump on their Zoom. It's some normalcy. Bring back some of the routines that the kids had when they were at school, but they don't have now, and that's important and meaningful for them. And so maintaining those kinds of things for them and being creative, that's a really creative idea. So I love that. And then thinking of how we can do that more for ourselves, and then also for for our clients who are also trying to create some normalcy in all of this. And it can be just something simple and small. So it's a good reminder.
Yeah, love that. Who else?
Well, I would just say that I really love, Kimberly, your focus on helping your kids to get out of this without fear and, being resilient. All of my kids are adult now. I wish that they were little so I could really use what I've learned today. But I think that we can apply this to ourselves too, right? As we get out of this, we have to also be able to go on without being fearful and being flexible, and all this positive thing that we learned from this time to apply it to our new normal life that we're going to. So I really appreciate the point on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Kimberly has some tools for us, and I think what we're going to do, Nanor will usually send out an evaluation email to all of those of us who have participated. And in that evaluation email, I believe we'll have links to the tools, or we'll have the handouts attached. Kimberly, do you want to maybe share with us what you'll be including?
Yeah, so there's 3 things that the scheduling tool I'll include, and also the goal setting for kids, and the chore commission chart for anyone who wants to get their kids off the screens and cleaning the house.
I needed, 10 years back to learn how to do that one.
Not applicable to everyone, but it is to be used with kids, grandkids. It's a simple template, but it is you can modify it however you want, and hopefully it'll be useful to and again, the tools in part about distributing the workload, part about giving them something to do and keeping them off the TV and the electronics. But part of it is, the other part is just really, giving them a sense of they have some control over some things. So it's been helpful, for the probably 10 to X teen years old, 16, 15-year-old. I think it's a great type of tool for that age group.
Excellent. And Kimberly, for the coaches who are on this call who may find themselves coaching or counseling a parent, would they have permission to pass those tools on to their clients?
Yes. Those were created for, those are absolutely, share them for whoever it would help. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
In the email, we're also going to share Kimberly's contact information. So if you have any more questions for her, or you'd like to talk to her offline, please feel free. Nanor, do you have anything else you'd like to say to wrap things up?
I just wanted, did you want to say anything about like our next events in October? Or do you want me to speak to that? I'll go ahead and speak to that. So we have a coaching and technology with Vanya coming up next week on October 20th. And she's going to be talking to Lori Monza from Sounding Board, discussing leadership development and the future of work. And then this is just last minute. We have Marian Franklin, who we just did the book club for, laser focused coaching. She graciously volunteered to do another talk with us to dig deeper on masterful coaching made simple. So that's coming up on October 27th, a really odd time. It's 3 p.m. on Tuesday. So we look forward to that. And our next book is right here, The Last Word on Power. That's coming up in November. And then November is like jam-packed. You guys got to get on our events calendar and check it out. So it's jam-packed. Right, Nahid?
Yes, we have 3 more sessions with Adam Quiney where he's going to walk us through step by step building and engaging new potential clients. So kind of step by step with that relationship that you're building from prospect to engaging with a client and having them say yes to you. And then I just talked to our November speaker today, Alexia Vernon. She is a very established speaker, and she was going to come and teach us how to promote ourselves using speaking engagements. And then since the COVID thing, most of us, if we're going to get speaking engagements, they're going to be on Zoom. So she's going to give us pointers on how to continue this process of using speaking to promote our businesses, but doing it in a Zoom format. So she's going to be sharing that with us, and that will be in our November meeting which is the third Thursday of November, whatever that date is. So tons of great stuff coming up. And then I think we're going to calm down in November for the holidays, but November for sure is packed. So we are very excited about that. Kimberly, I just want to thank you so much for being with us. It's just like I have loved to have an excuse to chat with you again, and just to hear you talk about these topics has just been wonderful. Are there any kind of last words you'd like to share before we leave today?
Well, I want to thank all of you. This has been a lot of fun for me as well. And I just, I've enjoyed really, I enjoyed the process of, going through this as a parent and brainstorming solutions and helping my clients in this area. And the thing that he's okay. Do you want to come in? You want to meet my son?
Love it.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
So this
Hi.
is, come on up here.
Okay.
This is happening live.
Yeah, this is my son. So how do you, tell these folks here how you feel about the chore commission chart?
The truth now.
It's okay.
We heard that you
I
could
love
do
it.
a whole
How much
floor.
money do you need?
Probably about $120.
Whoa.
Yeah. What's your favorite chore?
Swiffering the kitchen.
Woohoo.
Good, I have a job for you, young man.
Kimberly, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much
Bye.
for being here.
Hey, thanks.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your creativity and just sharing all your tricks of the trade. Really appreciate it.
Yes, I'm happy to. I actually feel I love that I had this opportunity to share them in hopes that they help even more people, because I know this is a stressful time for parents and for kids. And so
Yeah.
so thank you guys for the opportunity, and Nahid, thank you.
Great presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you
All
all.
right.
Kimberly.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.